Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Cup. I am so glad you're here today because today we're talking all about being busy versus being productive. And are you owning your day or is your day owning you? So, when it comes to the different feelings around being busy and being productive, there's a differentiation. The first one is feeling overwhelmed versus being focused. And when do you feel overwhelmed? You feel overwhelmed when your heart is racing. You have an immune system that's compromised. So, when our immune system is compromised, we might be lacking sleep, not getting enough sleep. We might be not fueling our bodies with nutrition that are good, not just for our bodies, but for our minds. We're not getting enough exercise. I mean, it's recommended at least 30 minutes a day for adults. And being able to do those things can reduce the fact of moodiness or irritability. Because if we're not eating healthy, we're not working out, we're not sleeping, that could lead into feeling moody, irritable, short fuse. Those things do create feeling overwhelmed as well. In addition to that, it's not just our mood, but it's also the responsibility overload. When we're busy, their responsibilities start piling on. We put more maybe on ourselves. Nobody's putting it on us, but like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. Oh, this opportunity, sure. And creates this whole aspect of feeling responsible for everything. And it's like carrying this huge tray and you're just trying to balance it and you can't because it's too heavy. But it goes back to not being able to feel like you can say no. Feelings of guilt come up. You might not be able to participate in your regular hobbies because you're doing so many other things and maybe for other people as well, but you volunteered to do it. So you're like, well, I have to do it now. However, when you're feeling overwhelmed, how do you become more focused? How do you become more productive? It's exactly what we're going to talk about. It's being able to bring your attention to your breathing. When you're able to focus on your breathing, especially in the moments of feeling overwhelmed, and I know I've talked about this before, but it's really important, I believe, because that's the quickest thing that I know works for myself, for my clients, both in the therapy world when I was there and the coaching world, and just even with friends and family. But when we're able to just take a few deep breaths, like really take a few deep breaths, it brings us back to the center. It might not fix everything in that moment, but it brings us back and our attention back to what needs to get done in that moment. But when we're feeling overwhelmed, what can you do? Meditation. So I've talked about meditation. I have a video on meditation, but when we're able to meditate, it can really also help us relax and be more focused. However, what I feel about meditation too is it's a practice. It's not something you do once and then you're golden for the rest of eternity. But when we're able to practice it on a regular basis, it can help us bring that state of consciousness of, okay, I need to relax, I need to focus, what's going on here in this moment. And with meditating, that's what it helps the subconscious do as well. So that's another thing you can do. One thing is yoga. So when we do yoga, just like meditation, it's a practice. But I know every time I'm in yoga, my thoughts might float away, but they come back into that moment. It helps me really focus in when I am doing my yoga practice. However, right after too, I feel more energized. I feel more focused on what needs to get done in that moment. But for whether it's a 15-minute yoga practice or an hour and a half yoga practice, anywhere in between, it helps me regulate my emotions, my mood, everything in that moment. So hopefully it can help you too. I definitely say try it if you can. The next thing is multitasking. Stop multitasking. I'm not talking about walking and listening to an audio or a podcast. I definitely do that. But I've caught in the fact when I'm multitasking in the past where I might be on a call with like my team, but then a social media thing comes up and I want to respond or I feel like I needed to respond. And then I'm doing other things. Maybe I'm cooking, maybe I'm doing something, but doing all those things, how in the world can one focus? You can't. But if you're able to really focus in on one task at a time, it can really help you. So I encourage you to stop multitasking unless it's something like, okay, well, maybe you're in the bath and listening to music. That's multitasking, but you're doing something fun and relaxing. Or like I mentioned with walking and listening to a podcast or an audio, you're still absorbing the information, but you can be alert to that while you're doing an activity. Just like people working out and listening to music, it's the same concept. But when it's something that's important, like that where you need that critical thinking skills, it's important to do one thing at a time because then you're going to have more productivity. The next thing is delegate. It's so important to delegate. I know with myself, I've been able to be more focused on doing these YouTube videos because I have a team now that does all the tech stuff because I am not tech savvy. I can get by, but I need a team behind me to do that, and that's delegating. So I have more time to focus on things like content and understanding what's going on in the world to facilitate that in an effective way. But my energy is being better used versus me trying to figure out how to do all the back end stuff. I know some of it, but not all of it. So that's really important to delegate. The last thing is seek professional help. If the overwhelm becomes too much and it's starting to affect other areas, there's a pattern, and maybe it's been there for a while and it is a cycle, reach out for help. Find a great therapist. There's so many resources out there. Or maybe it's you need a coach to help you stay accountable. Whatever it may be, don't be afraid to ask for help because I think that's the most important thing as well. So, moving into the next thing is, are you being fueled by perfectionism or purpose? So, when it comes to being fueled by perfectionism, there's a fear of failure, lack of self-worth, never feeling good enough, people pleasing. All those things are really generated by this root of being perfect and perfectionism. If we remove all that, that's where we can be fueled by purpose, feeling that inner joy, peace, fulfillment, and alignment with things instead of like rushing and wanting to people please and do everything and be busy, versus when we're able to just really be productive and know what our purpose is. There's not this rush or need to prove ourselves or prove our worth. Instead, we're really just focused on, okay, this aligns with me. This feels good. This is what I want to keep doing. So how in the world do you live more in your purpose? Well, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. When it comes to what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? What would you do? What would you do if you knew whatever you tried, you wouldn't fail? Well, because you are living in your purpose. You know this is what you're meant to do. Maybe you fail at that aspect of it, but aspect of launching a podcast or launching a book or a program. Yes, we've all have failed. It's part of the journey. It's a beautiful journey, and it's hard, and it's not easy all the time. But what if you knew this was exactly what you're supposed to do? Maybe it's just tweaking it slightly, and that could be the start of something great. But if you don't try, how will you know? The next question, what lights me up inside? So what lights you up? What truly just, whatever you think about, it just builds this energy around you where you're just like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I'm meant to do. Look at it. Write down a list. What brings a smile to your face? What just really lights a fire underneath you that you just love doing and being around and experiencing? Look into yourself. And the last question is, what would I do even if I didn't get paid for it? So for me, it's helping people bring awareness to how important boundaries are and self-love and your self-worth and value and just standing in who you are authentically. That's what I love to do. If I didn't get paid for it, I would still do it because I do it for my friends. I've been doing it since I was a child. But being able to figure out, what would you do? So those are my questions to help you live more in your purpose. So when it comes to my favorite analogy, I guess you could say, is working harder or smarter. What do you do? So when it comes to working harder, there's a lot of difficulty in delegating and prioritizing. This was me up until maybe a year ago, to be quite honest. But the first thing is you're multitasking. You're multitasking constantly. How are you going to be able to move forward if you're just focused on so many different things? So a perfect example of this is when I started my entrepreneurial journey. This was over 4 years ago now, like 4.5. But I was starting my coaching business. I was starting my health and wellness business. And then I was helping other people with social media, growing their businesses on the back end, just because I loved doing it and I wanted to immerse myself in everything there was. And on top of that, trying to maintain my relationships with friends, family. I was trying to focus on my health and wellness. So working out, eating healthy, just implementing the things that I talk about. However, I wasn't delegating anything. Everything was a priority. It was so difficult to manage all of that. And that's really, I was just being busy. I wasn't being productive because I didn't move forward in my businesses that first year because I was everywhere. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to multitasking. When we're able to focus in on one thing, it can grow exponentially if we're able to let it and focus in. Moving into the next point is a gateway to burnout and exhaustion. That was me. um, and now my clients too. But the first thing is it will damage your health. If you are not careful, if you are multitasking so much, it can lead to exhaustion. Your physical aspect, you can start to see issues with your health of just your emotional health, your mental health, your physical, spiritual, financial. Every aspect of health can be damaged if you are not focusing in on reducing the potential burnout or exhaustion that could occur. And with that, you can lack the energy and time because you are splitting yourself so thin that you're not able to focus truly into what needs to get done. And the last point of working harder is the creativity. Your imagination can dry up. If you are so focused on everything else, where's the space and room to think of the next idea you have? And as entrepreneurs, we're always like, okay, 10 steps ahead. We might have the next step, but we're always thinking, what's next? What's next? What's next? But we can't if we are so focused on stretching ourselves so thin and trying to do so many things at once. So the solution is to work smarter, fueling yourself with motivation and creativity. So what can you do? Plan ahead. Have things organized so you know. So scheduling what needs to get done in a timely manner. Which brings me to my next way we can is schedule based on your energy. So for instance, for me, filming videos, I am not a night person. My energy levels, they're low at night, but in the morning, I feel energized. I'm ready to go. I have my most creative moments right in the morning to afternoon. By like late afternoon, I'm like, okay, I'll do social media. I'll do things that don't require as much critical thinking and strategy. It's more of things that I can do kind of with, not with my eyes closed, but almost. But being able to schedule things based off of your energy and what makes sense to you. So I have a lot of friends that don't believe in the wake up at 5 a.m. and do everything first thing in the morning. A lot of my friends are not like that are entrepreneurs. They're more of night owls. They get a lot done at night. So it's just basing things based off of your energy and what makes sense to you and to like where you're going to be the most productive. The next thing is batch tasks that need to be done. So if you're able to know, okay, I need to get social media done, I need to get filming my videos done, emails, your podcast episodes, whatever you're doing, because I'm sure you're doing a million things. However, what's important? And client calls. Well, you can't really batch the client calls. You can, but what makes sense for you? So for instance, being able to batch things for me, I like to do my social media posts. Like I'll do maybe 2 weeks worth one day, takes me maybe 2 hours, and it's done. I don't have to think about it again. It's ready to go. And I know I can post it at that time that I need to. And I feel more productive because I don't have to think about it during the week when I have client calls or meetings or figuring out my next step or using my creativity when I have more energy during the week versus maybe the weekend. So being able to identify what makes sense for you, but batching things together will really help you stay more productive, and it'll be that weight off your shoulders too because you don't have to think about it again. The next thing is airplane mode. I have been using this a lot, but it helps me focus. So I'm not getting notifications every 5 seconds when I need to be creative and be in that zone, or I'm on a client call. Being able to have airplane mode on or do not disturb can really be beneficial for you working smarter. So you have, okay, from 5 to 6 p.m., my phone's on airplane mode. Nobody can contact me unless it's an emergency. You have your emergency contacts that if they need to, just disclaimer, but being able to have that can really be beneficial in the long run too, and it keeps you focused. And the last thing is take breaks. Taking breaks is so important. If we don't take breaks, it can just feel like we're constantly going. and we're not going to be as productive because we're like, oh, dragging. So, for instance, for me, taking breaks is I'll do 90 minutes because this is also like there's so much research around it, but I'll do 90 minutes of work and then I'm like, okay, after that, I'll go take a break. I'll go have a snack or have a cup of tea and be able to regroup and focus for maybe like 5 to 20 minutes, depends on what I need to get done. And then I know, okay, once I get back, I'm going to finish my content for an hour and a half. Okay, great. Finish that. Now I'm going to watch like a episode on Netflix. Okay, great. That episode's done. Now I'm going to go back to work. So I'm incorporating that work-life integration because I'm still doing what I need to do, but I'm taking breaks to allow my mind to rest. Because when you are so focused, you need that break. So that's working smarter versus working harder. So the next thing is the Eisenhower Matrix. Let me know if you've ever heard this in the comment section. Just put a thumbs up, like it, let me know. But the Eisenhower Matrix is from Dwight Eisenhower, and he had originated it, which led into the decision matrix. So Steve Covey broke it into 4 quadrants, and it's how to make decisions on what's urgent and what's important. So the first quadrant is urgent and important. So this is to really help you focus in on where your priorities lie and how you can be more productive. So the first thing is do it. Do it now. You have clear deadlines and consequences if it does not get done. So this is things like last minute requests that need to get done, or emergencies, crisis, or even a baby that's crying. They need you right in that moment. Make sure that they have all their needs met. But that's what would be urgent and important. The next quadrant is it's not urgent, but it is important. So it's schedule it. These are the steps that bring you closer to your goals and being able to plan strategically. So things like self-care, exercise, networking, personal and professional development. Those are just a handful of things. But when it comes to self-care, it's important, but you might not need to do it in that moment. Maybe it is exercise, being able to plan ahead of time so you know, okay, maybe you're a morning person that needs to work out in the morning, or maybe afternoon, evening, wherever it is, but schedule it in. Make it a priority, but knowing when it can be flexible. And that's the point. Networking. As an entrepreneur, networking is so important. I mean, I love networking, being able to meet different people, be able to connect others, and just have that, because I believe your network is your net worth. And the last thing is personal and professional development. Make time for those things that need to get done when it comes to your own growth, because we're always growing, we're always evolving, especially when we want to grow our businesses, we want to grow our families, we want to grow as an individual. So that's important, but making time for that. So for instance, that might be something like taking a course or reading a book, listening to a podcast, doing things that are really going to elevate you. And the third quadrant is urgent and not important. So what does that mean? Delegate it. This is like busy work, things that maybe don't require you to get it done, but it can help you empower your team. So things like uploading social media content. Maybe you have a social media manager. Maybe it's just admin work that needs to get done. Maybe it's forms or contracts or things on the back end. Video editing. So for instance, like I mentioned, I have a team that does all my video editing because, to be quite honest, that's not my strength. And I'm aware of that, but it's easier to delegate that. It's important to get it done, but I can hand that off to somebody who is better at that than me and will get it done in more efficient time. Cleaning. Maybe you don't like to clean and it's important to get it. I mean, it's urgent maybe, but maybe it's hiring somebody to do that and delegating that. Maybe it's phone calls and emails. How can you delegate that in a different manner? Maybe it's you have a virtual assistant, or maybe it's you batch that and get that done in a timely manner. And for the fourth quadrant, it's not urgent, not important, eliminate it. But being able to remove the clutter of things that hold you back or distractions. So for instance, this can be watching TV excessively, unhealthy habits, being able to feel that you're like maybe eating too much sugar. Sugar can really affect our mood and irritability, or maybe too much caffeine. I recently did a detox that I mentioned on one of my other videos, but I was drinking so much caffeine prior to that, and now I've cut back so that caffeine and I feel better. And I needed to eliminate it to realize that too. I mean, I realized it, but I didn't want to give it up. But it was an unhealthy habit. So it's being able to recognize when something's unhealthy and reducing the amount or eliminating it can really be beneficial. Scrolling through social media. If you're just aimlessly scrolling through, is that really being productive? Are you really moving forward? Or, I mean, sometimes we just need that break, but when it becomes excessive is what I'm talking about. And too much planning. Believe it or not, I mean, I love planning. However, if you're planning so much, you're not probably taking action that you need to take. So, with that being said, I just wanted to go over that for today. I'm so glad you were able to watch. Make sure to subscribe, like, and what really resonated with you? How are you able to now identify the difference between being busy or being productive? Let me know in the comment section. Thanks again, and I'll see you very soon.